What's up? I'm not your friend guy. And Reign of the Warlock really stirred the D2 pot for the first time in 25 years, and Hopium has been restored. Sure, D2R came with its fair share of changes, but new items and existing skill tweaks are nothing compared to an entirely new playable class. Decades-long droughts had caused 99% of players to abandon the thought of the game ever getting any attention or improvements. They claimed that the devs didn't care, that Blizzard didn't care, and that the game was completely in maintenance mode. Those of us who remained faithful were fully vindicated when Blizzard shadow dropped Reign of the Warlock back in February of this year. There were some who remained resistant, but for the most part, the floodgates of possibilities started pouring onto the internet again, signifying that D2 isn't back, it just never left. Originally, this video was going to talk about 3 things that I would love to see addressed in what I believe is to be the coming months and years of D2R development. But after sitting down to hash them out, I realized there's just one thing that I'd really like to see changed. And unlike the others on my list, I've never personally seen it discussed. So this is my pitch for one change to rule them all. The number one thing I'd like to see the devs visit in this new world of Reign of the Warlock is how we spawn the Diablo clone and gain access to the Annihilus small charm. Quick history lesson. The reason we sell Stone of Jordan rings to NPCs to spawn the Diablo clone is because there used to be a massive problem with duping items. Spawning the D-clone became a way to get players to destroy these duped items by selling them back to NPCs. The incentive was that the clone dropped the only unique small charm in the game. Back then, it used to take literally thousands of SOJs to summon a D-clone, and he would only walk on the very specific server IP that you sold them on rather than the entire region. But let's fast forward 20 years. Dupes have basically been eliminated. The initial problem that needed solving no longer exists, and that's evidenced by one of the tweaks that was made to the process. The cost to spawn a clone has been drastically reduced from tens of thousands to a minimum of 75 and a maximum of 125 SOJs sold to NPCs. Now, while the original issue has been handled, there are still 2 modern problems.
And modern problems require modern solutions.
The first and definitely largest problem remaining is that private entities still have complete control over the total supply of SOJs and Annihilus charms. Bot farms are now the main antagonist. They're the only entity who has the means to get enough SOJs to even spawn the clone. Plus, they're able to pick the time and region that the spawn happens on. This helps them select the region where the least amount of regular games are taking place, but where all their thousands of botting accounts comfortably await a clone spawn, thus controlling how many Annie get ushered into existence and making sure they have the vast majority of them. It's literally 100% exploit. No entity is walking a clone because they want at least one Annie for themselves, or something even more altruistic. They're doing it so they can make the most money. I actually think that if there was no profit in it, no clones would ever get walked. The second issue is that it's the only item in the game that is eliminated from something like solo self-found or even group self-found parties. Torches, the new Colossal Ancients jewel, everything in the Chronicle, they all have the ability to be farmed by one person should that person desire to do so. But Annihilus? No chance. Never will a single person be able to farm themselves enough SOJs to be able to walk a clone within a single season. They are resigned to waiting for a walk to be announced by some community or simply getting lucky enough to be online when a walk happens. There's not a lot you can do outside of ban waves to stop bot farms. And even then, they'll just buy up more accounts as long as they think it remains profitable. The best thing that can be done is to try and increase the effort for those farms to need to put forth, while also decreasing the overall rewards. Bonus points if you can do this in tandem with giving people the opportunity to farm an item themselves. That way, the bot farm is no longer the player's only means of actually attaining the item. We need a new way to spawn the D-clone that will address these 2 specific issues. Now, before I get into my suggested fix, I will caveat this by saying I am a little biased. My personal opinion is that the premier reason for playing on the ladder is the ladder race. This proposed solution has the added benefit of aiding teams in the ladder race with the means and personnel to do so. Teams like mine would absolutely benefit from being able to control the timing of getting our own Annihilus charm. This proposal is not perfect, but I gotta tell you, I think it's pretty close. To start, I'd like to see the clone be able to be summoned with a new cube recipe instead of selling items to NPCs. You would still need an SOJ, and it would still get destroyed, but you would only need one. You would also need at least one Standard of Heroes. Collecting the Standard of Heroes for this summon is acting like a rite of passage, using the Ubers in Tristram as a test of your character's level and your skill, signaling that you are strong enough to attempt the next boss fight. This would also allow the dev team to beef up the D-clone a little bit. Right now, the clone is a bit of a joke. Streamers are constantly trying to kill clones with weaker and weaker characters, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but characters who would not even be awarded a normal Ancient's quest reward should not be able to kill this guy. With the Ubers acting as a rite of passage, you are completely justified in giving the D-clone new mechanics, maybe some summons, increased stats, or anything that you think would make the fight more interesting and exciting. And honestly, that ultimately leads to a more rewarding feeling of success when you take him down. This new full recipe would be 1 SOJ and up to 8 Standard of Heroes. The number of Standard of Heroes used in the recipe will set the player count that the clone will spawn at, rather than using the player count of the characters in the game when he spawned. In addition, defeating the clone will yield 1 Annihilus small charm drop for each Standard of Heroes that was used to summon him, allowing each kill to produce up to 8 Annihilus. Lastly, since this is happening with a cube recipe, this would only spawn a clone in the single game, rather than across an entire region. And maybe this could be some new red portal that takes us to an area from some unused concept art from the unfinished Act 4, and that's where the clone awaits us. Or maybe it can continue to implement the replace the first super unique you spawn mechanic, but I'll leave that up for creative debate. Along with the benefits of hopefully getting a more interesting and difficult boss fight, it does make it impossible for you to cheese the clone for higher rewards. It would follow a similar pattern as the new Colossal Ancient fight. We personally learned in Season 14 that if the Colossal Ancients are spawned and active, they will actually reset if another player enters the game. I really liked this mechanic. We got defeated handily, but I liked the mechanic. It doesn't allow for unbalanced and unfair fights to yield big rewards. I think a new type of summoning the clone would be perfect for the continuation of this effect. You could still spawn him on P1 using a single Standard of Heroes and roll up on him with the homies in an 8v1 brawl, but then you're choosing to get only 1 Annie for the group of 8. This is a completely acceptable trade-off in my opinion, as this acts exactly like the Uber Trist fight currently does. Uber Tristram is almost exclusively spawned on P1 to make the fight as easy as possible, even if they are being fought by 8 players. However, the Ubers can only ever drop a single torch, so it's already a little bit balanced as it is. The biggest benefit, I believe, is that it reduces the SOJ to Annihilus ratio tremendously. Currently, once a bot farm gets 125 SOJs, they can turn those into an infinite amount of Annihilus. Realistically, that number's probably in the 20,000s or more. With this new spawn mechanic, now 125 SOJs is at most 1,000 Annihilus. And even then, to get to 1,000 Annihilus, you first gotta go farm 375 keys, just so that you can go kill the Ubers with 8 players in the game 125 times to get 1,000 Standard of Heroes. And then you can spawn 125 P8 D clones, hopefully beefed up with new fun surprises. While bot farms can still technically perform all these actions, it would make it much more tedious and the effort a lot higher, while also reducing the reward. You're talking about an increase of effort of probably 10x and a decrease in reward by at least 10x, and likely a lot more. It might just be enough to prevent them from trying to do it altogether. Plus, you've enabled group self-found and solo self-found players to find their own Annie should they want to go that route. And let's be honest, who wouldn't be happy about the standard of heroes finally serving a purpose? There's even already a very convenient spot in the materials tab for this. Farming any item in the game should be attainable by anyone playing the game. And the Annihilus should not be an exception. And the more we can decentivize the botting community, the better off we are as a player base. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and feel free to check out my other videos on my channel for more D2 hot takes. Well, that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the leaderboards.